What's up, everyone? I thought I would just share some observations and reflections on my first couple times being back on the water. I got hooked up with a master's rowing club and have been now back on the water twice. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little nervous. Although I am in shape, I wasn't particularly confident in how that would carry over or translate back to the boat. And just having not been in a boat in 15 or so years, there's just a little nervous, a little imposter syndrome. Went out, this was a few Saturdays ago, early. They practice on Saturdays at 6, and it's about an hour drive from home. I had a very early start that morning. I was blown away. I think there were maybe 30 guys that showed up. I was thrown right into it. I think we had 3 8s that went out on the water that day. They were doing some set pieces in preparation for the head of the Charles. So not quite race pace stuff, but certainly high intensity, slightly longer pieces. And my goal for that first session simply was to just get used to some of the basics of being in a boat. For example, feathering and squaring your blade, which is of course not something you have to think about on the erg. And then obviously rhythm, feel, balance. There's a lot more stuff happening when you're in a boat and a lot more things you have to pay attention to. So mentally, there's just a lot more information coming in that you have to process. I was pleasantly surprised, I guess, that not that it came back easily. I don't want to make it sound like it was easy by any means. I don't know that I helped the boat that I was in at all, but I didn't feel like I significantly messed things up for them either. So, and it was hard work. When you're in a boat, you use a lot more of your core muscles, obviously to help stabilize the boat. You're shifting around a decent amount. It's different enough from being on a linear erg that you're gonna feel it in different places that you haven't. I had some blisters, which were expected. I knew I would get some blisters just from feathering the blade. But overall, I was very happy, and it was a lot of fun. Gave me a taste of what it felt like to race. And I went back out on the waters just this past weekend. This time we had 4 8s. I think there were 30, what does that mean? 4 times 9, 36, at least 36 guys. And actually, I think there was a quad too that was out. So we had north of 40 guys who came out for practice, which is unbelievable. I don't think in college I'd ever even practiced with more than 3 8s at any one time. So it was a first for me. I had made some mental notes of things I wanted to work on from the first practice. So I'll give you an example. For those of you who aren't rowers, haven't been in a boat, this might be unfamiliar to you, but there were just some things I noticed from my first row back that I really wanted to work on. One was adjusting to this club's different style of rowing. Now in high school, I went to high school in Canada, rowed on the same lake that the Canadian national team trained on from time to time. So we very much had adopted the Canadian style of laying back. And that was just what I was used to, even in college to an extent. And so rowing with these guys that first session out, I could already feel that I was kind of getting stuck at the back and had to very consciously shorten up my finish. It's not muscle memory to me, so I had to really try and think about that and focus on that to feel like I was in rhythm with the rest of the guys. So that's one example. The other example was, actually I should mention, I was rowing on port side because remember, rowers all face backwards. It was my oar is to my right. I felt like I was leaning out, my body weight was leaning out towards starboard side, which is not what should happen. Your body weight generally should be slightly leaned in towards the side that you're rowing. So in my case, rowing port, I should feel like my body weight is slightly leaned towards the right. I felt like I was leaned out to the wrong side, And the result of that is not only does it potentially throw off the set of the boat, but it also makes it hard to keep pressure. This gets, I guess, maybe a bit more technical, but to keep pressure to keep the oar really pressed against the oar lock. My oar was sliding ever so slightly in and out of the oar lock each stroke, which tells me I wasn't applying enough pressure, outward pressure, to the oar lock, which therefore means I'm less connected throughout the duration of the stroke. And I felt like I did make some improvements. I was very focused on those two things. I know I'm fit enough. I'm not worried about that. What I am concerned about, if you want to say that, is gelling with the crew and just being adaptable. And then at that point, really put down the power. Like I said at the beginning, great group of guys. At our stage in life, we're all rowing. We're all getting up at 4, 5, 6 in the morning to do this because we love it, right? Not because we have to. And that's a major difference maybe between rowing as a master's rower and rowing as a high school or collegiate rower. So it seems like a really great balance of, you know, people taking it seriously, but at the same time, really having fun with it. I'm gonna continue trying to get out there once every couple weeks. It's probably realistically all I can do because the kids have their soccer games on Saturday mornings. I don't want to miss too many of those, right? There's just a lot going on. But if I can get out a couple times a month, I think that'll be a great way for me to slowly start to get that feel back for being on the water. One other thing too that this club takes quite seriously, I'm learning, is erg scores, particularly in preparations for the Head of the Charles, which is coming up in October. Now, I should mention, I did not come out to row with this club with the intention or the goal of racing the Head of the Charles this year. If I'm honest with myself, it would be too soon for me to attempt that kind of race, especially when their goal is to win their particular age group. I just don't know that I will have had enough water time under my belt to do that. Maybe I will shoot for a seat in a boat next year in 2025, but in any case, I want to get in the habit of, or get used to the quote-unquote pressure of doing erg tests that actually have consequence. So I've been doing a lot of time trials in my training over the last 9 months or so, but none have really carried a whole lot of significance. You know, if I had a bad test, it didn't really matter. I could just do it again. But this, you know, for the club anyways, these tests do matter, and they're one of the key inputs that coach uses when he's deciding boats. So the team, everyone in the Masters group has to do a 5K by next week, first week of September. Just due to some uncertain long weekend plans and kind of a wacky work schedule next week, I actually ended up having to do it today, which was not ideal because I had just done a max effort 10K on Monday. Anyhow, with all that preamble, let's see how the 5K went.